What's up, crew? Welcome to Filming in Progress, the show that takes you backstage into the world of local businesses and the people who make them shine. I'm Aiden, founder of 2C Media, and I'm here to bring you the candid conversations that unravel the challenges, victories, and untold stories of those who dare to make their mark. We'll be delving into topics like innovation, leadership, and personal growth, providing practical insights you won't find in a business textbook. Grab your beverage of choice, kick back, and get ready to intake the wisdom of founders who have been there, done that, and are still hungry for more. Ready? Let's roll. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We're stoked to be here. We're here in the Yama HQ. Obviously, we got a lot going on behind us, but we're going to push through that. That's awesome. Take me back. Who are Pat and Alex?
Starting with the deep questions.
That's really deep. Well, we actually met owning a franchise a long time ago. Kind of always had small business kind of in our blood for sure, and kind of part of our relationship as well. My background before that even was also in small business stuff. I've always been really into what can I do to make a name for myself and really carve my own path. Me and corporate certainly didn't really jive. I went down that path for a while in finance and accounting, and had some stumbles for sure. And decided to ultimately leave. But yeah, I don't know. Before that, growing up, my whole life was soccer for sure. That was my whole life. I was lucky enough to compete overseas a little bit. And then I kind of stopped and kind of shifted focus to business. And so that's kind of me in a quick nutshell, really. Yeah.
But who are you, though?
I know, it's so deep. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. How about you?
Well, as you know, I am co-founder, co-owner of Yama Vans with Pat here, and we have another partner named Kevin. I lead our marketing. Pat is our CEO, whatever that means.
So often you're like, what do you even do all day?
Yeah. I'm like,
That's the
are you
hardest
sure
question to
you're
answer,
doing
isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Who are we? Business owners, dog parents.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the most important one.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's a hard question.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
I like it. Why Vans? What made you start in Vans? Coming from corporate, coming from banking, coming from soccer. Why Vans?
Yeah, the quick story there is kind of before Yama. My background again is in finance and specifically wealth management back then. So my old company I started with two partners here in the city. We grew that for a little bit, and I wasn't quite aligning with the direction of the industry and that company specifically. So Alex and I said, look, why don't we sell my third of the company to the two partners? We'll leave and go on this like epic 6-month road trip. We're like, fuck it, we don't have kids. Let's be opportunistic. We're never gonna get this chance again. So let's just take like 6 months off, kind of see what I want to do next with my life. At the time, you could work quite remotely with your job. So we kind of a perfect storm to Alex can pay for the food and the gas and we can kind of hit the road. So in doing that kind of trip planning, I think I got really obsessed with this idea of these off-grid, off-road vans. Back then it was like not even really a thing in Canada. It was kind of popping off in the US quite a bit. It's been a thing in Europe for a long time. But I got hooked. I'm also a very like fanatical mindset. So like if I get onto something, like I get obsessed with it. I feel like you probably know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
So once I found that, I was like, Alex, this is it. Like, this is like, it's not quite like an RV like I grew up in. It's like something much more capable, much more robust, much more modern, fully self-sustained, fully off the grid, and it's perfect for this trip. And then so I said, well, why don't you let me build us one? Because I'm craving a project, leaving my old company. So why don't I build this one and we'll use that for this epic road trip? And Alex was like, okay. So yeah, we looked at it more, and Alex and I decided that, to do this thing properly, it's going to be very expensive, right? So you could do like a quick and dirty version, but we're not super keen on that stuff. If we do anything, we're going to do it as best as we can. And I wanted our first build for us to be something that people would look at and think, did someone professionally build this in the US? So a bit of a pride thing for me for sure. And automotives are really in my blood and my family lineage. So I wanted to really make this amazing. So we said it's going to be very expensive to do. So why don't we rent it out a little bit? So like kind of an Airbnb style. Like why don't we like use it for 2 weeks or a month, come back, rent it for 2 weeks, whatever, make a little bit of money back. It's a small bit in the grand scheme of the cost of a van, but it would help. But we couldn't help ourselves but to put some numbers together, and we said, well, shit, there's a real business there. Like, why don't we buy 2 of these things and then kit them out and rent them out? We could do like $500 a night, 1 week minimums, have like a lot of fun with this. So we said, let's push our trip back a little bit. Let's try this little hobby business and see how it goes. So that's what we did. We launched the rentals under Yama back then. The brand was the same, logo was the same. And then we kind of got rolling, and fortunately Alex filled the schedule very quickly, and we had a full season booked super fast. And then, we enjoyed that first kind of season. I learned a lot building the first vans for sure. And then we had guests from all over, which was really cool. And they'd kind of come to the rental, they'd have a fun time in the Rockies. They'd come back and say like, if this was my van, I would do this, or, I'm really into biking, so I would change this. And those conversations were pretty fun to have. And, that kind of sparked a bit of an idea for us about custom building. And I think at the time, the industry was so new to Canada that no one was really existing here locally in Canada, but in the US it's really, really popping. And so we thought, okay, maybe we'll consider that one day. But we had lots of inquiries come in really quickly about custom builds. I think a lot of clients and customers then were like, kind of saw our design of our rentals.
Do you want us to pause?
Nope.
Okay.
Design of our rentals.
I'm like, oh, okay.
It was kind of like a happy medium between the builders that existed. I think a lot of builders were very functional. So it was like gray and black and metal, and it looked like 6 dudes designed a van, you know what I mean? And had like a male market focus. And a lot of builders were far on this side where they were like really tiny home, and they're using like particle board, they're using like paint and tile and all this shit that shouldn't be in a moving vehicle, let alone an off-grid moving vehicle, an off-road vehicle. So we kind of hit this middle ground that I think was a sweet spot in the market, which was bringing in very functional design with very aesthetic approach design. And that was kind of the result of me pulling towards function and Alex pulling towards aesthetic design. And so clients really liked that and kept calling us and saying, hey, I know you rent, but would you build us one? And at the time I was like, fuck no. I was like, I'm so burnt out from the first build, and I'm not a professional to do this. So we kept pushing it off. But, fuck, that's really loud. We kept pushing it off, but the inquiries kept coming in. So we said, look, let's look at this industry. Is there an opportunity for us to do this? And so we analyzed it a little bit and said, look, there's an opportunity for this in Canada, especially being in Alberta. It's the RV capital of Canada. We're landlocked, obviously. You can't really get boats, really, in Alberta. So I thought it was perfect. So we decided to try it. We found 2 customers in the US that wanted to kind of try it with us early and were willing to kind of take a risk on a new builder. And we took on some projects with them and then hired a very specific team. So we were very careful with hiring, again, knowing it's not my skill set, it's not Alex's skill set to build these things, professionally at least. So how can we design this perfect dream team to do this? It's not like you can go hire adventure van builders, right? So we thought, how are we going to take inspiration and do this in an elevated way? And we thought the marine industry is perfect. We're like, the marine industry is very romantic about their vehicles. The quality is really at the forefront. And it's a lot more modernized. It's much more off-grid. It's so advanced from the RV industry, which is very overall kind of cheap and behind the times and kind of monopolized by a few companies that own everything. So we didn't really like that. So we thought, how can we make these things basically land yachts? So we thought, let's bring the marine world into the vans. And that was our approach early. And that's still what we do today. But we found, very luckily, an individual who learned his cabinet making trade building these gorgeous yachts in Australia. And we took his kind of construction and cabinet making approach and education and experience, brought that into the vans, and that kind of like catapulted our whole construction approach. A lot of the needs are very similar, right? It's like nothing is straight, it's all curved. You got to consider weight and vibration and moisture, and the whole thing kind of twists as it drives. So very similar considerations, which are so different from construction and residential. So on the flip side of him, we again wanted inspiration not from the RV world, but somewhere else. So we thought the opposing skill set of him, which would balance it, would be automotive mechanics. And like they're very skilled technicians in a very specific area. And we wanted to make sure that whatever we did, at the end of the day, you're driving people and families down the road on these things. So it's got to be very safe. And you want technicians who are certified to do things properly and safely. So that was a clear choice for us. We found a 15-year automotive mechanic that I knew from my personal life to join the team. And then we kind of had these two guys, this little dream team started, and we started building. And that was kind of the beginning. That was kind of the start of the Yama. So
Right on.
yeah.
So the founding idea was a trip.
Yeah.
Did you ever go on that trip?
No.
No.
We didn't even have our own van.
We did for a little bit. One of
Yeah.
the rentals. We're actually about to build another one, which is super exciting. We're about to build like a marketing van, basically. So
We always joke about like, it took us, 5 years, 6 years to finally get our own van and go on the trip we wanted to do.
yeah.
It just came around, but a long time coming.
Yeah, we've been on like shorter ones, like down the coast and things like that, down to California, see a couple clients and stuff. But we haven't done that original trip, and now it's hard to fathom like the irony
No.
as you go into business to have more autonomy, and now it's like I can't even imagine trying to take like 6 months off to do something, you know? So
Well, yeah, and like the irony of having like an adventure brand company is like we do less cool stuff because fortunately we're very busy. But yeah, the first few years, like we were just all in all the time, consistent. It was just Yama, like at work, at home, because it was us. It was just you live and breathe Yama as we grew it. It's getting a little better now with the bigger team, but yeah, to try and think we would take 6 months off would be crazy.
Yeah.
But who knows? I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe.
But I think you're also speaking to like why vans. We both have that sort of adventurous spirit in us, and we've always loved to do things like that. And so I think this product in particular really spoke to us because we're like, oh, this is something we can lean into with like our love of design, our love of brand, and just our love of like going out there being spontaneous, but also liking a little bit of the creature comforts. Like I grew up sleeping in a tent with my parents, basically. You grew up RVing.
But like not like this.
Yeah.
It was like a 1970 Class C that was rusted. Like
Yeah.
it was very different. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So it's definitely in our roots, but we kind of put like a Alex and Pat spin on it. We wanted to be a little bit more capable, off-grid, all that kind of stuff. So.
Right on. Cool. Yeah, I think it's super important, like obviously to have that foundation. Obviously, like your product essentially enables adventure, right? Is one way to put it. How do you keep that value true both for yourselves and your team on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think we really see business as an adventure in itself. I think that's part of the adventure for us is like whether it's Yama right now or the business we had when we were dating for 3 months and we started a business.
Yeah, I moved to Edmonton and I was like, let's just
Yeah.
fully fucking send it and see how it goes.
So that's definitely always going to be a part of our journey, and I think we love that. So for our team, there's a couple things we do. We do something pretty regularly called Mountain Mondays, where we give everybody a paid day off and let them go explore in the mountains, and we'll set up like a team hike where we can go together. Some of them go on their own and like hit the trails on their bikes.
But we're like very clear. We're like, this extra day or X number of days per year, like you can't just go like Netflix and do nothing or like run errands. Just like go to something fun that you love to do, whether it's like climbing or mountain biking or whatever, hiking, whatever. But use this as a chance to like, live kind of the brand values and enjoy the outdoors. So yeah.
And personally, I think we're always trying to incorporate it. We just booked a trip to Italy, so we're going there in a month. We love to travel, but it was in our wedding vows, so now we have to. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Now we
actually
have to.
forgot about that, didn't you?
that was actually
It's binding.
that was in my speech when I proposed to you.
Yeah.
Was adventure, like the idea of adventure too.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think, have you ever read Let My People Go Surfing?
I have, yeah, one of the best books of all time.
Yeah, so
right?
that,
So good.
we took a lot of inspiration from that book, I think, in starting the company. And as a small company, it's hard to be able to like walk that walk when you're so busy and, you know, you're bootstrapping everything. We've bootstrapped this company. So, but as we grow, we're trickling in like little more pieces of that, I would say, as much as we can. So Mountain Monday's a good start.
I've been fortunate enough to know you guys since Van 1, I believe. Yeah. And I've noticed over the years, but even since the beginning, that you've both been super creative individuals, but in very unique ways, if that makes sense. And also your craftsmanship that goes into the vans, but also everything else you do, you know, like the pre-planning and the marketing and all these different things is very, very well executed. Down to every detail. Talk to me about how important, you know, attention to detail is in your business, but not only on the van side, but also everything else that you do.
Do you have a good answer
Not
for
really
this?
a detail guy. So.
I would say you're creative though.
Yeah, I think so. Certainly not very detailed though, in that way. Like, I think we're good complements of each other for sure, because I think Kevin actually described it once really well one day, of like, I'll kind of go first and bulldoze shit, and you're kind of like making everything work. I'm kind of right behind me, and same with Kev.
Cleaning up your mess.
Essentially, yeah, but like, I think me and you and Kevin's skill sets kind of driving the direction of the company is a really good group and a very complementing skills. But yeah, I think creativity and detail and quality are very important to us as people. Like I said earlier, we're not kind of people to like half-ass something. Like if we're gonna say like start a business or like our house reno or like whatever the thing is, the project is, we want to go all in on it and make sure it's done to the best of our ability, which I believe is just a very high standard. So it's kind of how we approach anything in our life.
And I do think there's like an element of that comes back to like the roots of Yama too, which is like your Japanese heritage and just that sort of like Japanese attention to detail and kind of like effort applied to the things that they do. And I think you really leaned into that when we were starting Yama as well. And
anything Japanese, I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What does Yama mean?
So Yama is the second half of my grandma's maiden name. So it's a family name. Nishiyama was the family name. Nishiyama means West Mountain. So Yama is essentially mountain. So that's why it's lowercase as well, because it's kind of part of another word. That's basically it. A bit of a hat tip to like my background and my family, and again, automotives and a lot of what we do here is kind of really in my blood and my lineage. And like Alex said, we really connect with, well, me, I'm obsessed with Japanese shit, but like we really connect with the Japanese philosophies in a lot of ways, and just their, like you said, quality, attention to detail, and just their approach on projects is just something that generally they want to leave and do in a very high quality way, and almost like a legacy format, right? It's not just slap something together and sell it, kind of the American way. It's more, let's do this to the best of our abilities, not because we can sell it for more or make more, it's because we want to have pride in our work. And I think we really connect with that, and the whole team here.
Yeah.
It's part of our values here too, so yeah.
Alex, I'm jumping back a little bit, but when Pat was talking about kind of, you know, the first van and building that out, it sounded like, you know, you might not have been fully on board right off the bat and maybe a little bit hesitant. What kind of got you over that hump and like made you realize, yeah, you know what, this is something I want to do or I can get behind, or?
It's a good question. Probably a couple things. Like, I have a very entrepreneurial spirit. I was working at the bank, but definitely feeling unfulfilled in sort of the creative side of my life. So I was definitely craving something like that to grab onto. I was a little bit hesitant when Pat said, I'm going to buy this $85,000 vehicle and then build it out. And
cut holes in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I mean, a lot of people do it, so I knew you were capable. I don't know. I think it was just the idea of latching onto something that is so freeing. Like, it was almost a juxtaposition between like my corporate life and the job you had just left that are very sort of like rigid. This lifestyle, this business became very appealing, I think, pretty quickly. And I was like, sweet, if we can go on a sick road trip, then I'm down. But quickly it became a lot more than the road trip. Yeah, I don't know. I think trust. I was like, okay, I'll follow you. If you want to do this, I'll jump in.
Yeah.
But
I think we also at the time, like, so I was in finance and you were at the bank. And I think in a lot of ways, for me at least, I was like, this is the path that I've always wanted to be on, yada, yada. And I was like, we got there and we're like, this kind of sucks. Like, we're like, this is it. Like, you know, you're like kind of further in your career and you're kind of checking some boxes and you're like, it just didn't feel like enough. It felt kind of, for me, it felt kind of empty and kind of like underwhelming. So I think part of the reason why you were so stoked at the beginning eventually is because it was just like you said, a juxtaposition of like your career so far and like how different things could be. And then when the business started kind of rolling, we're like, oh shit, we could like go full in on this and kind of get the stuff we were craving in the corporate world, sort of.
well, and I think too, like when I graduated university, I was like, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I never thought I would be in corporate, and it kind of just ended up that way. And it's funny, have you ever worked in corporate?
No, not directly.
Yeah,
feel like you wouldn't like it.
I would like it?
No.
I don't think it's
for
like
me.
it.
I don't think
I
it's for me.
think like it was good for me in a sense that I'm very like competitive. I think I really thrived in that environment in a lot of ways, but it's kind of soul sucking, and you don't have the same amount of autonomy or creativity that you can like apply to things. And so that was something we were really, really craving. That it's interesting, like my mental health was kind of like in the tank when I was working in the last few years. When I was doing both, I was trying to excel and climbing the corporate ladder, and I was trying to excel in building Yama. And it's funny, now that I've been in Yama for a year and a bit full time, I realized that it was actually corporate that was giving me that crazy anxiety. Like it's funny, this is way more stressful. We have way more on the line. Like in theory, right, this would be a lot more difficult, but it's actually just so much more natural to come to work and face these problems than it was to work in a bank and
Interesting.
talk about those things.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is so interesting because, like you said, like it was always your thing. You know, for a lot of other people, they fall into it because they've have found a solution to a problem or whatever the case may be. But I find specifically for me when there's, like you said, there's way more stress in what we do, right, as entrepreneurs. But there's also, and often, for lack of better terms, it sounded like you were both kind of escaping something from your previous, work life, et cetera. And then you've built something that obviously you're able to do what you love every day, which is incredible. How do you maintain like not getting back to those things that you're trying to escape in the first place? Because those things still come up even when you are, your own boss or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a couple different things. I mean, when I have moments of doubt, I'm like, well, maybe I should just, go get a cushy corporate job and do that instead. But that thought doesn't last very long. We're also, I think, like gluttons for punishment. So when it comes,
100%. It's so
that
weird.
is entrepreneurship, isn't it? Yeah.
I think when we're faced with those dilemmas, usually we pick the hard route. So that's very
Always. It's so annoying. We always pick the hard thing. And I will keep doing it. I don't know why, but you're right. We just like the pain.
Yeah. So, and then like when we're in the middle of it, we're like, why the fuck did we do this? But it always turns out pretty well for us. So I don't know. I think there's also like the cool part about what we do is that because we're building Yama and the team's building, and the majority of the team right now is on our production team. And now like I guess more like office-y type roles are starting to be a bigger part of what we do. We're kind of carving our own paths and like what we want to do. So right now I lead our marketing and customer service. Eventually I'd love to just be in that CMO role and focusing solely on marketing, but it's kind of cool that I can help shape the company and put the right people in the right places to help be able to funnel me into that position that's going to give me that fulfillment. And I'd say that's what we're really focusing on right now is like, how do we get the right people in the right seats and where do they want to be and giving that sort of fulfillment in what they're doing. So just seeing that clear path to being like, that's where I want to be and I know I can get myself there pretty easily. That helps a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think too that I forget who it was, but someone gave me this tip about hiring once a long time ago, but of like, every time you hire, especially for the front of house staff, is like a chance for you to carve off the things that you don't love as much and then focus even further on the things that you do love. So like if say you have 10 things on your plate and you hire someone, you can carve off 2 of them, so you're focused on 8 now that you like more, and keep doing that, and eventually your focus will be so sharp on things that you just love to do and you're good at, that you kind of create your own role in a way, and you kind of keep following the thing that you like most. I found that's been really helpful.
Yeah, you said that way better. That's
but
what
it's
I meant.
exactly what you mean.
That's
right?
what I mean. Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. And it's not just like delegating the crap tasks. Like that's not what I mean at all, but it's delegating to people who would love that task and that you're not necessarily like great at yourself or want to be doing, right? So.
Like for example, when we brought Kevin on, so Kevin runs all of our operations, and it's like, I'm not an operational person, and he loves that. Like he just thrives, and he's just so dialed into that type of mindset that it's not something that's like a crap job. It's just a job that I'm not excelling at, and I don't have the skills to excel at.
No, do you want to, really?
No, I want to, yeah. But if I can like carve that out for the position, and then we hire someone like Kev to take it, then I can focus even more on the stuff that I'm good at and I like, and allows him to be in an environment that he thrives in too. So I think that really helps.
Do you find delegation complicated or hard to do? Like let go of those tasks that you know that you could potentially do a little bit better, or you know that you want to be in control of, or
I'd say that's probably harder for me than it is for you.
Yeah.
Especially with things like, I think, because a lot of what I do in the company, marketing and customer service, they're things I want to protect. So I'd say yes, it is harder for me to kind of let go, especially if somebody's going to do something their own way. But having clear boundaries around or clear expectations in my own head about which things I need them to do like exactly how I want them to do it versus where they have a little bit more flexibility, like making sure that I define that really well for myself and them really helps. But yeah, I'd say I definitely struggle with it a little bit more than you. I like to hoard things, but
Totally.
That's been a process of letting go for sure.
I like to unhoard things.
Yeah, you do.
But it's hard for sure. Because like in a way, when we very first started, it was just me because you were paying the bills for the house, you were working at your corporate job. So like in a way, it was like you do all of the things when you're one person, right? And then you like hire someone, you do less things, and you keep doing that. So in a way, I've done all of the things at some point, from build the first van to everything now. So I think what's made it easy for me to do that is hiring the right people. So like we only hire on culture fit. Like that's it. Like if you happen to know some good skills in the back, great, that's a bonus. But like if you're the right cultural fit, then you have the foundation to be taught our trade and what we do. And that makes it so much easier to be like, here's what I'm gonna trust you with. Because if they're the right fit culturally, like we have no worries. Yeah. So that's where I don't have concerns. When there's a misalignment with culture fit, I find you're nervous to hand things off because you're not quite sure how they'll handle it. But if that fit is there, it's like, yeah, you give them the reins and they'll do really well. And if they fall on their face, it's okay, they'll learn. But that makes it a lot easier, I find. Yeah.
For sure. I agree. And we put them through the ringer when we're hiring. Like I think our hiring process is more intense than probably like any other trades hiring.
Yeah, like it's long, it's painful, and I want it to be painful. Like I want it to be, because the cost of the wrong hire is so huge, right? Like, so it's better off to invest the time at the front end, put them through it, and if they still want it and you still want them and it's the right fit, then knock on wood, they should last a long time. Yeah. We're very lucky that we don't have much turnover here. Things, of course, will change and people's lives change, of course, but in terms of overall happiness, the team is, we think, and from what they tell us, very happy, and I think we'll stick for a long time.
So would you say culture is more important then than like actual skill set? Obviously, it's a good balance, but is that accurate?
I think to a point, yes. There's certainly base skills we need for some people on the team, like certified technicians on the mechanical team, certified cabinet makers on the cabinet team. Like there's definitely base levels we need. But once we kind of have those in place and the tickets are in place and the safety is in place and things are being produced correctly, to kind of hire like more entry level skilled people for that team, it's more just values. Like 2 of our recent hires on the mechanical team, actually 1, doesn't have a ticket and isn't working towards his mechanical ticket. But his values are so good that we can teach him a lot of things that a ticketed mechanic doesn't need to do. And it's still super valuable for the team. So I think values is the heart of it. Once there's a foundation of core skills you have. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Right on. How? So, I mean, we talk a lot of, a lot of people talk a lot about work-life balance, and I want to kind of spin that a little bit.
Almost makes me laugh.
It's hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah.
What does that mean, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I heard it described once as, if you truly love what you do, then you don't. The traditional sense of work-life balance doesn't really exist to you because, you're getting all the fulfillment you need from your work, wherever that is, whatever that looks like, et cetera. What does that mean to you guys? Do you align with that statement?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll think about that one for a minute.
I almost laugh because not because I don't believe in it. I think, and for us, like for the team, we want to promote that, like with Mountain Mondays and stuff. Like it's really important to us as a team, specifically for our team. So they're healthy, they're happy, they have like fulfillment in their jobs here, and they love working here. But for us and for Kevin, like on the leadership team, it's kind of laughable in a way because if you're really trying to grow something and you're really committed to growing it, you can't do it in 8-10 hours a day. You just can't. Yeah. Especially the first, startup area, maybe it's like 3 to 5 years, that first period, there's not a chance. Like you would get nowhere.
That first 4 years at Yama, I don't know, I pretty much never saw you. And then outside of my corporate job,
and
I was working in additional 20, 30 hours.
I would lose 20 pounds in stressful periods easily.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't eat. I just you're so focused on doing something, you just forget the basics and you stop taking care of yourself a little bit. I'm lucky that when I don't take care of myself, I lose weight, I don't gain weight. So, but it's just like you're so dialed in. I think now work-life balance is it's more balanced than it ever has been for us, because the team's so great. So we really try to, like Alex said, we just booked a trip to Italy, which is kind of like a long time honeymoon coming, sort of, from being married 2 years ago. But we really try to prioritize our own time for sure. But it wasn't really possible the first few years.
Well, and I think too, being married and being partners in business, we have to be really careful about not bringing everything home. Yeah. We had to learn very early on to be like, okay, we're done, no more work, because it's exciting and we want to talk about it all the time. But pretty soon that takes over and becomes everything. So we're we're pretty good at that. We have a good boundary. Come home and we're like, okay, I'm done talking about work. That's it. And we respect that boundary. But I would also say that work-life balance for us actually typically looks more like work hard, play hard.
Yeah. So
I think we really value working hard to achieve the things that you want to, but also rewarding yourself and having a good time and enjoying life. Totally. That's ultimately what it's about, right? We wouldn't do this if we didn't enjoy it. Yeah. I think we're very of the mindset that you kind of create your own adventure and you create the path that you're on, so you might as well create a good one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. It's funny. A lot of people try not to go into business with their significant other, with their partner, with their, Totally. Yeah. It's great that you guys are making it work, and very clearly, very well, obviously too. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for most people.
Yeah, I'd say generally it won't work. I think it's fucking hard, especially the first little while. What do you call it? The storming and norming phase, where it's just kind of you're getting your shit figured out. Mm-hmm. It was really hard. We had a swear jar at home. So we talked about work after 6 p.m. I think. Yeah. You had to put a thing in a swear jar, and it was $5 a penalty. We never fucking paid it. But, we tried different.
You might have
tactics.
gone on your 6-month adventure if you did.
Yeah. We tried different tactics, but it's hard for sure. I would definitely caution people against doing that without really thinking through it and trying something similar or smaller scale first together. It's almost like traveling with someone is similar, where it's tight quarters, kind of stressful, whatever, high pressure sometimes, lack of sleep. It's how do you guys do traveling together? That might be a nice small little litmus test on how you could do it, but it's certainly not for everybody for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're in the custom world, which we're also in, so we're no strangers to it. How important is listening to your customers, and how do you go about that? Not only from obviously before process is probably very well thought out, and you're getting all the answers that you need to be able to do the work that you need to do, but also afterwards, and how does that kind of shape what you do in the future?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. We started off super, super custom, the sky's the limit. Whatever you want to put in your van, within reason, we'll do it. We'll try and make it happen. And I think we had to start out that way. just to learn like what works and what doesn't work, and really be able to like pivot with that feedback. And so we're lucky that we're small enough that we can still make adjustments to the product as we go. So every time we're having a conversation with the client, we're taking note of like, okay, they didn't like that feature for XYZ reason. Maybe we should consider that a little bit further. We'll take that to our design team. I'd say we're pretty iterative. Like we're very, what is that saying? The continuous improvement. Is it Kaizen? Kaizen is a Japanese term that means continuous improvement. And we really try and kind of embody that spirit here at Yama. And I'd say our team's really good at it too. Sure. But feedback is definitely important. We wouldn't be anywhere near where we are with our product right now without having that feedback and just making those adjustments all the time. And I think we've gotten to a place where we're kind of lucky that everything we built was custom, so we could make adjustments. But now we're at the place where we're trying to standardize things a little bit more to optimize production and things like that and operations. But yeah, what does it look like? I think it's been very informal for the most part. We do have a little bit of like a formal feedback process after we deliver a van. But most of it's just building relationships with our customers. And I think that's the most important part, is like really listening to them and being empathetic and understanding how they use a van, what they love, what they don't love.
I feel like it can't be too dissimilar to your world. Like in many ways, like our team and us and our designer as well, like there's a big creative element for sure. It's not like we're just producing the same van every day. So there is creativity involved, of course. But you want to let the creatives be creative, right? But like within like a safe sandbox, but like give them some space to do their thing. So I think early on especially, and even now, like we tell our customers that like, here's kind of the design, here's whatever, but like we want to have a little bit of say as we're building, if we want to make a tweak and change that we think will align with what you want and what your needs are and you as a person. And you want the freedom to have some creativity, because if you don't, like, you know what I mean? Like if we try to tell you exactly how to do all your stuff, like it's just not the same product. You have to let the creatives and let the professionals do their own thing. And for the team, it's similar. It's like, here's how we build the vans, here's the specs or whatever. But certainly they have creative freedom to do things differently, try something new, kind of allow their ideas to come through as well, from even the build team all the way up to the design. So.
It's really cool that, you know, we think about, you know, vans or videos or anything like that as like a product, you know, the customer's receiving a product, but it's so much more than that, obviously, but also like understanding their needs, and it's very personal, you know, it goes beyond, it goes beyond the transaction. You know, I know for a fact that you guys are kind of following up with your customers from years ago and you know, staying in touch and even reselling their vans for them and that sort of thing. Really cool. Have you ever pursued something that was like a massive fuck up? Maybe it was a lot of resources or time or effort or anything like that, that, you know, just didn't pay off in the way that you expected it to?
I feel like we have little fuck ups like every single day.
All the time.
Every single day, but...
We recently went to fuck up nights, and we were thinking about this actually. And we're very lucky in a way that there's not like an obvious, clear, huge one, but I know there's some coming, of course. I think that there's, I don't know if there's like a really big, glaringly obvious one. I was actually asked this on a panel a long time ago, and I didn't really have a good answer.
Yeah.
Which is there anything you can think of?
Honestly, that's not a bad thing. Yeah. That's not a bad answer.
I feel like the problem is though, we fuck up all the time. But maybe that's
like
just like...
small to mediums.
Yeah, small to medium, for sure.
But small to mediums for sure. But I think we're
maybe underestimating the size of space we need. Like that was pretty ineffective. Like
I guess, you know what? I think the problem might be is that I'm like, to my fault, too optimistic, I think. So when I see like fuck ups we've done, it's almost like I can't help but to see what the good was on it. Like it's just almost a fault. Like that is an example that like we signed onto a space before this space for I think it was a 3 or 4 year lease, I forget. But we all grew way too fast. Like within the first year and a half, 2 years, we're like, we need more space. So we had to move to this space. We had that lease still. We had to sublease it to local laundry, which is great. But like in my mind, that's like a great thing because we're growing, we need more room. But certainly like committing to a space for too long, considering our trajectory at that time, was a big mistake. Yeah. We could have definitely done a shorter lease, more expensive, or found a bigger space and bit off a bit more early. So that was definitely a pretty costly mistake for sure.
Well, and this is the third space we've been in In
Fourth.
5 years. Fourth space we've been in 5 years. So like we've made that mistake more than once.
We've moved
For
a lot,
sure.
and the cost of moving is a fucking.
Like you see how much stuff is in here. So.
Yeah, sure do.
But I also think that one of the reasons maybe we avoid the really big mistakes so far to date, is I think we're very cautious with the big decisions. I think we really think through them. Certainly, like you balance me out, or else I would just be going full in on a lot of dumb shit. But and with Kevin as well, and our mentors too, like we're very cautious with those big things. Even like standardizing the vans that we have, and how do we do this to increase quality and make production more like predictable and all these things. It's like that decision is something we've been thinking about for over a year. It's like, how do we approach that and make sure that the product is elevated, the customer's experience is elevated, production times are down. Like, how do we balance all those things? Versus if we just fully sent it, that could have been a big mistake. So I think we're really just cautious with the big stuff and really think through it a lot.
No, for sure. Now that the team's at a size where it's like, I mean, there's 15 of us, so we really, if we can, avoid those big mistakes as much as possible because we have so many more people to consider, right?
And they've got kids and shit, and you're like, holy crap. So you just got to be so careful with those big decisions now, because it isn't just me and you anymore, right? It's like...
I'm so glad we looked at in the beginning, and a couple of our competitors and other people I know we've done this as well. I'm so glad we did not purchase a space.
Yeah.
Because we would have been in a lot stickier position if we had. And we severely underestimated the size of space that we would need to do this. Like, we'll probably outgrow this one that we're in right now. This is almost 10,000 square feet. Realistically, it'd be ideal if we had like 40.
I looked at a 20,000 square foot warehouse down the street last week.
Yeah.
So like, you just got to like have a pulse on what's out there. But yeah, that's been a big one for sure.
Yeah.
Right on. That sounds, I mean, any fuck up should be looked at as like an option or opportunity to, learn from, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Do you have any big ones? Yeah,
it's a hard question, eh? I find it really difficult. The fuck up nights people did a really good job.
Yeah.
But like, I found it really hard.
Yeah. It is complicated, and I think everybody looks at it differently because I agree with you. There's plenty that I can think of top of head for sure. Do I consider them big? Probably not, because the learning was, I mean, they were probably, massive mistakes, absolutely, but you sure as shit didn't do it again.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it's hard to frame it, right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting, community is so important for any business, right? Obviously, everybody knows that. But when your customer, you only deal with, how many customers do you deal with on a?
We have 4 on the go at a time, so quite a few.
But
there's
I would
always
say
a bunch in the design queue as well, so.
Yeah, we're dealing, at one time, it's hard to say, but we're dealing with the ones we're designing, the ones that are in production, and then service and support afterwards. So really our customers, they always come back to us pretty much for service and support. So they're kind of lifetime customers at that point.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I don't know, like lots. Like, I don't know, 15 plus at a time, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many of those are local?
Probably half.
Half?
Yeah, half.
Local to
being
Calgary?
Canadian, I would say.
Canadian?
Half.
Local to Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, half American.
Half American.
Within the Canadian 50%, I'd say like, I don't know, 10 to 20% of them are Albertan. Most of them are out of province.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regardless of the diversity of where your customers are from, I always see you at local events and that sort of thing. Supporting local breweries or local products or anything like that, or even just going to the networking and that sort of thing is obviously valuable to you. Why is that, and why is it important to maintain?
I think some of that comes from your background, to be honest.
You think?
Yeah.
I think it's really important. So when I first started working at the bank, I worked in the Entrepreneur Center and got exposed to many, many events, and quickly realized in talking with all of the entrepreneurs that I was working with at the time, like how lonely of a journey it was for them. And us too, we're naturally introverted. So I think our default state is like, let's go in our house and not talk to people.
Really? I don't think
You wouldn't guess it?
No, not at all.
It's kind of funny. Like, I don't know, maybe not fully introverted, but during COVID, I realized I'm like, oh, I'm super cool just like sitting in my house by myself all the time, and it doesn't bother me at all. Whereas I know it bothered a lot of people. And so I think we really push ourselves to get out there and to connect with community, because it is such a lonely road. And it sounds so cliche, but like, no offense to our friends and family who aren't on this journey with us, but we find it hard to connect sometimes with other people who don't understand what it's like to have the trials and tribulations of owning your own business, right? And so
I think it's like having a kid. I'm just guessing. We don't have kids. I'm just guessing.
you're gonna offend people.
I know. Yeah. Okay. No offense to
No,
kids.
I like that. Let's explore
like
that.
what I mean is like, as soon as someone has a kid, their friends are all people with kids. Like, you know what I mean? Like people with kids in their lives, their friends, their siblings, whatever, that also have kids, that becomes their crew because they know what it's like. They know like what the birth experience was like, how shitty it is to raise a kid at the beginning, right? Like it's so hard and like we don't understand. So if someone with a kid is like, I'm having a really hard time with blah, blah, blah and sleep and blah, blah, and we're like, my black lab is perfect. I don't know what to tell you. So like we can empathize or we can sympathize. We can't empathize because we don't know what it's like. So I think it's similar with business. It's like, as much as our friends and family love us and want to know about how things are going and like how we're doing, it's hard to go really deep with it because they don't know what it's like and how hard it is and how much you really commit to it and how much it takes. Similar to, I think, having a kid. That's kind of how I see it. Yeah.
I see.
Surround yourself with, the similar people mentality, right?
I think so, yeah.
People who understand like why you would want to put yourself through something like this. It's incredibly stressful, costs a lot of money, it's hard. So yeah, for sure. So
I think it's part of the reason why we're out there is because people know, like what it's like. Not everyone knows. So it's just different.
Yeah, it really is hard to find people that kind of understand what you're going through at all times. So yeah, that totally makes sense. What kind of tech are you using? Are you currently using any like forthcoming tech like AI or blockchain or anything like that that's kind of changing the landscape, specifically AI and that sort of thing?
I think we could do a lot better job at this. I think there's definitely opportunity to use AI where we're not currently, like procurement and things like that, where we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. And just in manufacturing in general, I think there's a lot of opportunity. Sure. I'd say right now, in marketing is probably the place where we're using it most.
Like for copy and stuff?
and things like that, just to help write copy and even strategy, marketing strategy sometimes can be really useful for. And so that would be probably the biggest implementation we have right now. But I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I'd say
to
we
go a little bit deeper.
Aren't doing a lot of stuff like advanced stuff for sure. Like, I think one day we'll sell, maybe actually to you, our first Bitcoin van. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's some cool stuff down the road.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah,
I'm
but
in.
like,
sign me up.
But yeah, it's just like I don't know. Maybe we just haven't really focused like to those kinds of areas to see where the opportunities are for us. I think we're still pretty like in it trying to make things work here, the systems we have, but I think there's big opportunity. We just don't quite see it through the trees quite yet. Yeah. Unless you see some opportunities that you could tell us.
I will.
Absolutely. So what's next? How are you positioning for growth? What are you doing next? Obviously the change from going full custom to kind of these like almost preset, if you will, if that's the wrong word, apologize. What's the next step in kind of those big steps, those big journeys? And
do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Or is that mapped out yet? Have you started thinking about that?
There's lots of opportunity. I think we haven't settled on one path at this point. I think our goal is to be. Oh no, I'm gonna get it wrong. I'm gonna say it the wrong way. The best off-grid. Anyways, we want to be the best. That's it. In North America. In Canada, for sure, we want to start there. I think we have an opportunity we've really carved a niche in this market of like an RV that's more capable, a little bit more comfortable in like tenting or something like that, and something that's really spontaneous and feels like you're at home. And so I think we're unique in the market in that sense, and our product will stand the test of time. So we're excited to continue to lean in and manufacture more of them. But there's a lot of opportunity as well, and like the rental side of things is something we would consider getting back into. I think it was a really fun endeavor, and we're well positioned now to do that a heck of a lot better than we did in the beginning. So that's certainly something that we're kind of kicking around. And it would be fun to be able to like offer that to people who can't afford to buy a fully custom van and just let them experience all the things we love about it. There's certainly a side, we've looked in e-commerce, we've built a whole e-commerce store and not launched it multiple times. So we have
merch and that sort of thing? Or?
More like camping and outdoor lifestyle type items. So like really amazing gear from like Korea and Japan and stuff like that that is a little bit lesser known here in Canada. We just keep teeing it up and then being like, oh no, we shouldn't do that yet. So
It's kind of similar back to that mistake question. It's like,
yeah,
it could be so easily one of those things that's a huge mistake where you're like, you launch it and all of a sudden now 25% of our focus and our front of house staff focus is on like fulfillment for orders, and you're like, well, fuck, and then the core business fails, and then you miss customer expectations for the builds, and so we don't want that to fumble. So we're like, we have it just ready to go, just got to press on, and it's like live, but we're just hesitant until it's like perfect, so we can deliver an amazing experience. To deliver something half-assed is just not really our thing. So.
hello.
Cintas Tim.
It's our Cintas Tim.
It's our Cintas guy.
We love Tim. Should we invite him on?
Yeah.
What was the question again?
Growth.
Growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at the core, basically, we want to elevate what's currently seen as the RV industry. So I think for us, the goal is to build the #1 off-grid Class B RV in Canada.
That's what I was trying to say.
And to be honest, I think we're there. Like, it's just a matter of like, our scale's not big enough to really be seen as like a big player quite yet, but it's there. It's there for sure. And I think for us to just scale that up a little bit bigger, to be a big enough voice to say, hey, industry has to be picked up a bit in terms of quality standards, and how can we help to lead that charge in the industry and kind of make everyone pick up their socks a bit. I find that's really important for us to be leading that charge, and then bring that across to the US as well, but really elevating the quality of vehicle that people can expect from a Class B RV, starting with Canada. So, yeah.
There's a lot of, it's a very niche industry, but I feel like also there's like, we've talked about this off camera, but companies popping up left, right, and center kind of thing, right? How do is there a collaboration atmosphere between you all? Is it competitive? Like, what does that landscape look like?
I would say it's less collaborative and more competitive.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes, but I think that's kind of our doing.
You think so?
At least for our insight into that world, like,
Yeah.
I can't speak to like how they might collaborate, but I can, just from seeing the industry, I think it is overall quite competitive. There certainly is inspiration drawn from other builders on like ideas and kind of elevating the industry, which is fantastic. But I think it's quite competitive. I think, at least for us, like starting out, you put blood, sweat, and tears to learn the trade because you're inventing it as you go. So for us to collaborate with a brand new builder and give them 4 years of trade secrets is really hard for us. We want to really protect it. Like the team here puts in so much work to develop all the little tricks and tips on how to do things properly and correctly and efficiently, and to just kind of be collaborative is something we're not quite ready for yet. But in the same idea, like, I think we have some competitors, you can call it, in the US that we talk with frequently that are pretty open book, more or less.
Yeah.
The markets are a bit different. They can't build for Canadians, so it's not quite a competitive feel.
Why is that?
Just some legalities with cross-border stuff with the sprinters. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot more opportunity to be collaborative, but it's a little bit, because it's such a niche space, we're limited in like our suppliers and things like that, and even talent and stuff like that too is really niche. So it makes it a little bit tricky to be collaborative without having too much overlap, if that makes sense. So.
But I think at the same time too, like, I think we have to lead the charge to make it more like, I always think of like the brewery industry as like an example, because it's kind of similar. It's like a similar kind of vibe in terms of like who's on the team and a lot of like the values they hold. And I see the brewery industry kind of similarly, where it's small, it's niche, it's quite community focused. Like, it's not quite there, but I think we could lead the charge to make it more like that. But I think we have to lead that as the leaders in the country for sure, to say, industry, let's do this, make it more shareable. But I really like to make sure that we're like ironed in as like the leader first before we kind of start making that happen. Make sure we're in a good spot. So, yeah.
Love that approach.
Yeah.
Right on.
But it'll be fun though. Like next year with our marketing van, we hope to be able to lead a lot more of those types of events and meetups, and just kind of like develop what adventure van travel looks like in Alberta and Canada. It's fairly new in Canada as compared to the US. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do some like really fun stuff, really cool stuff. So.
Right on. Well, I'm excited to see what happens next.
So thanks. Yeah, we're excited too.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it. We've probably interrupted your staff for long enough now.
That's
but
good.
Appreciate your time and answering the questions, and happy to have you.
Thanks
Yeah,
so much.
thanks so much.
It was fun. It was a
Yeah, that's
pleasure.
fun.